She never served. If she says she did, she's lying. My father's voice boomed across the packed courtroom, dripping with decades of calculated malice. He smiled at the jury, confident he had finally destroyed me. He was suing me for millions, claiming I had fraudulently stolen from my late mother's secret trust fund. For years, he and his greedy new wife had painted me as a fraud, a liar who used fake military service to hide my financial crimes. My own father looked right at me and sneered, expecting a total surrender. But then, my lawyer quietly walked up to the bench and handed the judge a sealed pentagon envelope stamped with top-secret clearance. The courtroom went dead silent. The judge broke the wax seal, scanned the document, and suddenly turned pale. He took off his glasses, looked at my father with absolute fury, and thundered, "All rise." My name is Evelyn Carter, and at 40 years old, I finally understand that some people are born to build families, while others are born to destroy them. Growing up in the shadow of my father's massive real estate empire, I learned very early that love in our house was a currency, not an emotion. My father, a deeply narcissistic developer who measured a person's worth strictly by their bank account, never saw me as a daughter. To him, I was just a disappointment, an invisible fixture in a grand house. My younger brother, Christian, was the golden child, the chosen heir who could do no wrong, despite failing out of every business venture my father bought for him. The only true warmth in my life came from my mother. She was a quiet woman of immense grace, but she was secretly fighting a losing battle against a severe illness. When she passed away unexpectedly, the fragile peace of our household shattered instantly. My father didn't even wait for the mourning period to end before he introduced his new wife, a fiercely manipulative woman named Victoria. Together, they moved like predators, seizing control of the entire estate and systematically rewriting the family dynamic. They locked me out of my mother's bedroom, gave her jewelry to Victoria, and made it perfectly clear that I no longer had a home. They thought they had stripped me of everything, completely unaware that my mother had left behind a hidden shield to protect me from their boundless greed. It didn't take long for Victoria and my father to begin hunting for what remained of my mother's personal assets. They believed everything belonged to them by right, but their arrogant confidence hit a massive wall when the family estate attorneys finally called us in to review the details of my mother's private trust. As the lawyer read the dense legal documents aloud, the color slowly drained from my father's face. Deep within the paperwork lay a hidden ironclad clause that my mother had secretly inserted with her own attorneys months before her passing. A massive portion of the estate, amounting to millions in liquid capital, had been locked away in a highly secure independent fund. According to the explicit terms, these assets were accessible only to me, completely bypassing my father. However, there was a catch that left everyone in the room stunned. The release of the funds was tied to a specific, highly confidential condition that the lawyer refused to disclose publicly. Furious at being outmaneuvered by his late wife, my father exploded. Over the next few weeks, he and Victoria launched an aggressive campaign of intimidation, trying to corner me into signing away my legal rights to the trust. They threatened to leave me penniless and blackball me from the industry if I didn't comply, but I refused to be their victim. Instead of engaging in a messy public battle that I wasn't yet equipped to win, I chose to vanish. Overnight, I abruptly packed a single suitcase and disappeared from town. I cut all communication, deleted my digital footprints, and left behind absolutely zero paper trail. My father, desperate to save face, maliciously spun my sudden departure to the public, claiming I had run away in deep shame after being caught trying to defraud the family. Before I tell you what my father found when he finally tracked me down, follow my story until the end and comment the city or country you are watching from so I can see how far my voice has reached. The web of lies he spun to ruin my reputation was nothing compared to the shock that was waiting for him in that courtroom. You see, he thought I was hiding in weakness, but I was actually building an armor he could never pierce. Stay with me, because the true nature of my mother's secret condition will change everything. 10 long years passed before I finally stepped foot back in my hometown. I had changed completely, but the greed consuming my father and Victoria had only grown more ravenous. During my decade of total absence, my father's aggressive real estate empire had begun to fracture. Driven by Victoria's insatiable thirst for luxury, they had taken massive financial gambles, pouring millions into high-risk developments that ultimately collapsed. They were drowning in severe debt, desperately shuffling money between shell companies just to maintain the illusion of success. It was during this financial death spiral that my father discovered a terrifying truth. The 10-year anniversary of my mother's passing was approaching, which meant the massive, untouched trust money was finally scheduled to be unlocked and distributed. Desperate for a financial lifeline to rescue his crumbling empire, my father launched a massive, predatory lawsuit against me the moment my return was spotted. He didn't just want a piece of the inheritance, he wanted to seize every single dollar. To win over public opinion and influence the legal system, he orchestrated a vicious smear campaign. He boldly alleged in his court filings that I had fraudulently altered the original trust documents before my mother died, manipulating her failing mind. But his most audacious and calculated lie was yet to come. Because my whereabouts for the last decade were completely untraceable, he concocted a brilliant narrative for the media. He claimed that my supposed secret military career was nothing but a total fabrication, an elaborate smokescreen cooked up by a criminal mind to hide illegal offshore bank accounts where I was allegedly laundering stolen family funds. He painted me as an unpatriotic fraud who was using the sacred uniform as a shield for white-collar crime. By the time we were called to the initial trial, the local community looked at me with pure disgust. They believed a grieving father was finally bringing a corrupt, lying daughter to justice. The day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was packed with journalists, former business associates, and curious onlookers, all eager to watch the dramatic downfall of an alleged fraud. My father took the stand first, putting on a masterful theatrical performance for the jury. He squeezed out forced tears, wiping his eyes as he described the unbearable heartbreak of discovering his own daughter's treachery. He spoke eloquently about his deep respect for the armed forces, twisting his face into an expression of pure disgust whenever he glanced toward my defense table. To solidify his trap, his legal team presented folders filled with falsified employment records from dummy corporations, alongside orchestrated testimonies from biased family friends. These handpicked witnesses confidently claimed under oath that I had spent the last 10 years hiding out in luxury European resorts, completely fabricating my service to avoid paying taxes on my mother's money. The climax of his performance came when he turned directly toward the jury box, his voice booming with absolute conviction. He delivered the damning line with rehearsed precision. "She never served. If she says she did, she's lying." The spectators gasped, and Victoria smiled triumphantly from the front row, whispering to her lawyer. My father looked right at me, a cold, arrogant sneer playing on his lips. He was entirely convinced that he had backed me into a corner from which I could never escape. He expected me to break down, beg for mercy, and sign away the millions to save myself from prison. He had no idea that his brilliant web of lies was about to collide with a heavily classified truth that none of them could possibly comprehend. The heavy silence in the courtroom was broken only by the sound of my father stepping down from the witness stand, adjusting his expensive suit with an air of absolute victory. That was when my lawyer, completely unfazed by the theatrical display, slowly stood up. He didn't offer a dramatic speech. Instead, he walked toward the center of the room, holding a heavily guarded, thick manila envelope stamped with a bright red top-secret pentagon seal. He bypassed my father's legal team entirely and handed it directly to the bailiff to pass to the judge. My father and Victoria watched, their confident smiles faltering as a palpable tension filled the air. The judge broke the heavy wax seal with a silver letter opener and pulled out a single embossed sheet of paper. As his eyes scanned the official document, the casual indifference on his face vanished, replaced by total shock. He turned pale, his hands visibly trembling. The paper he held proved everything. I hadn't just served in the military. For the past 10 years, I had been an elite special intelligence officer operating under a strictly classified deep cover assignment. The very nature of my mission required the absolute erasure of my public identity, which is why my paper trail had ceased to exist. My late mother, who had deep family roots in the government, knew about my path. Her trust's secret condition was simple. I had to successfully complete my 10-year tenure of service to national security before the funds could be released to protect me from being targeted while active. The judge slowly took off his glasses, looking at my father and Victoria with absolute fury. The room went dead silent as he slammed his gavel down and thundered, "All rise!" He didn't command it for himself, but to honor my real rank and sacrifices. He then pointed directly at my terrified father and ordered the immediate court bailiffs to arrest both him and Victoria on the spot for perjury, malicious fraud, and illegal asset tampering. The fall of my father's real estate empire was swift and absolute. Exposed as liars and criminals on the public record, his remaining investors completely abandoned him, and his banks immediately called in their multi-million-dollar loans. Under the crushing weight of relentless legal fees, severe criminal penalties, and massive public disgrace, he and Victoria were forced straight into federal bankruptcy court before facing their prison sentences. They lost everything they had spent a lifetime ruthlessly plotting to steal. Meanwhile, I took full control of my late mother's untouched trust fund, utilizing the millions to build the Evelyn Carter Veteran Rehabilitation Center, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to supporting deep cover intelligence operatives transitioning back into civilian life. For the first time in 40 years, I am living a peaceful life entirely on my own terms, proud of the uniform I wore and the legacy I have built. What would you have done if your own blood turned against you like this to steal your inheritance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below.